Hey, how are you doing? Bill DeWeese here from voice-over-training.org. My mission in working with voiceover talent is to help to equip you, to empower you, to educate you, to give you the tools to help you be more successful in your voiceover career. And today I want to talk to you about three-dimensional reads. And when I'm working with a voice talent, either in a coaching session or maybe when I'm producing a demo and directing them during their demo recording session, I like to give talent, I like to give them models and tools to use that will help them to better understand how they can bring or give the performance that they need to give the best read to whatever script that they're working on, depending on the context of the script and what the direction of the script is calling for. And I think the three-dimensional model voiceover delivery is a good tool. I know it's helped me tremendously as well as the talent that I work with, and I want to share it with you. The first of the three-dimensional read styles has to do with your pace. That's the first dimension, the pace or speed of delivery. And in all honesty, we have very little control over that. That is pretty much dictated by the length of the script that we have and how much time we have allotted within that script to get the copy in. So the pace of the script, the speed, again, will be mostly dictated by the way that the script is written. So again, not much control over that. So we won't focus on that right now. What we do want to focus on are the remaining two dimensions where we do have control, and by understanding these dimensions and by beginning to be thoughtful about how we utilize these two dimensions, you can really bring something new and fresh and different to your read style. It will help you, I always talk a lot to talent about being one-trick ponies. And it's the tendency for most talent early on is to be a one-trick pony, where you bring one read style, regardless of whether you're doing a hospital script or you're doing a car dealership or whatever the case may be. It's basically one read style. So what we want to do, what I want to help you do, again, whether you're new or even if you're experienced, is to help give you a model to begin to stretch you in new ways to make you a better voiceover talent. So again, the speed, the pacing is pretty much, the speed is dictated by the script itself. However, this next area, this next dimension, you have a lot of control over, and that is the articulation of your voice. And whereas if I'm talking about speed or pace, I might use my hands to say, okay, it needs to be faster and shorter, or we're going to stretch it out slower to make it a little bit longer. When I talk about inflection, I always use my hands to illustrate this, and that is, if you think of, and by inflection I mean the ups and the downs, the peaks and the valleys of your voice as you deliver a read, with this being the bottom and this being the top. And perhaps your range of inflection that you're capable of doing is right here. And perhaps in a conversational read style, you might bring it in a little bit, up on the bottom and up on the top, or it's just a nice, easy conversational style. But different scripts call for different things. And oftentimes, I'm casting a lot of younger roles for scripts, and I think it's because, well, I'm pretty confident the reason is because I understand this particular dimension, and I understand that a younger, a hipper, and a fresher, and by the way, I don't define myself as a hip-sounding voice talent, but I do have the capability of skewing a little bit younger. And the way you simply do that is to flatten the range of your inflections, because younger people tend not to, they're not as focused on the performance end of their voice. It tends to be a little cooler, a little laid back, a little more nonchalant. So if you do that by flattening out your range of inflections. So for instance, I've grabbed a script. This is actually an audition that I did today for an agent. It's for Publix grocery stores. And so let's say that this particular script called for somebody, it's a younger, a little more laid back, a little hipper, a little cooler. So the idea is, we don't want to try real hard by expanding our range of inflection. We want to flatten it out a little bit to make it sound a little more laid back, a little more nonchalant. And so it might go something like this. At Publix Deli, we love creating great new subs to share with you. Recently, a bold Vietnamese sandwich caught our attention. Meet the banh mi. Pork, veggies, herbs, it's delicious. Naturally, we were inspired. So, in those few lines, what I've shown you is that, let's say this was my range of inflection on that. Now, let's say this called for something that's a little more animated, a little more excited, a little more promotional. What I would coach a talent to do is to stretch out the range of inflection, the ups and the downs, to give it a little more up and a little more down, and again, in their range of inflection. So it might go something a little more like this. At Publix Deli, we love creating great new subs to share with you. Recently, a bold Vietnamese sandwich caught our attention. Meet the banh mi. Pork, veggies, herbs. It's delicious. Naturally, we were inspired. So again, I've stretched it out, and by doing that, I've added a little more energy to the read, and I've created a little more, it's a little more of an animated read, so it sounds a little more promotional and a little more excited. So that's the second dimension. Again, think in terms of the range of inflection of your voice. Excited, promotional, upbeat, happy, or maybe a little more casual, friendly, guy, gal next door, flatten it out a little bit to even sound younger and a little hipper and a little cooler. Now, let's talk about the third dimension briefly. And the third dimension is, this is how I illustrate it, meaning how much I project my voice. Most of the commercial work these days is really calling for voice talent to pull way back. And to be conversational means you don't project out to the listener or the audience. Because when you really project, it sounds as if you're talking to a lot of people, which means you end up sounding like an announcer, a radio or a TV announcer. And while some scripts do call for that, you really need to be able to master the very conversational guy or gal next door. And you do that, or one of the big tools that you do that is with this third dimension, and that is to pull back on the projection. Oftentimes I'll coach a talent to actually, I'll have them whisper through a script before they read. If they're having trouble, and let's say for instance, they find themselves projecting out. So let's say for instance the script called for something more promotional, where not only do I want to use this range of inflection, but I want to project out more to make it sound more promotional and more announcer-ish. It might sound something like this. At Publix Deli, we love creating great new subs to share with you. Recently, a bold Vietnamese sandwich caught our attention. Meet the banh mi. Pork, veggies, herbs, it's delicious. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. That's a little more promotional. Again, I'm pushing out, and I'm using a broader range of inflections. Now, let's say the direction is to make this sound more personal, more one-to-one, more like what I would describe like Tim Allen, if you listen to Tim Allen, who does most of the Campbell Soup commercials, a lot of the Chevy commercials, a lot of the Michigan tourism type commercials. And he's the master, in my mind, of doing the casual, relatable read. But you do that, at least one aspect of that, and a very important aspect, is by pulling back on your read. So it might be more something like this. At Publix Deli, we love creating great new subs to share with you. Recently, a bold Vietnamese sandwich caught our attention. Meet the banh mi. Pork, veggies, herbs, it's delicious. Naturally, we were inspired. Now, you could pull that back even more. And let's say, for instance, I'm not working on a Publix Deli script, but perhaps I'm working on a hospital, a healthcare-related script. In a script like that, typically what is of utmost importance is communicating concern and empathy, and people tend to choose doctors and healthcare providers not necessarily always on the expertise that they have, but on how comfortable they feel when they, your doctor, sometimes you choose a doctor because of their bedside manner, maybe even more so than their experience and their expertise. So oftentimes in a healthcare related commercial, the job is to make the person who's listening feel comfortable, to feel like you've been there, that you understand, and as they make this important decision about their health care, that they can be confident and that they can feel that this particular hospital, this particular doctor understands them and can relate to them. So one of the tools that you use, one of the methods and techniques that you use is to pull way back. And instead of projecting and trying to sound professional and trying to be animated, you pull the voice way back. And you even oftentimes reduce the range of your inflection. And you just talk a little more tenderly and a little more compassionately and a little more like we're sitting across the kitchen table over a cup of coffee, and I'm telling you that I understand what you're going through because I've been there before. And you can trust this hospital. You can trust this doctor. You might want to consider this procedure because it's going to help you. And by pulling back in my delivery, in the projection of my voice, and by flattening out the range of my inflections, it makes me sound more relatable and more real. Now, certainly you have to honor the context of the script. You need to know who you're talking to. You need to know what your role is. You need to understand what the emotion is that you're communicating. But by keeping in mind the three dimensions, the speed of the script, of course, the copy dictates how fast you're going to have to read it. You have very little control of that. But then there's the range of inflections. And you can control the energy level, but you can also control, to some extent, how old or young you sound in the script by controlling the range of inflections. And then also by using the projection of your voice, by pulling way back. And by the way, when I'm coaching talent, 95% of the time, the issue is they're projecting too much, and I have to pull them way back. So if you want to sound relatable, if you want to sound like you know the person that you're talking to, you don't shout out at them. You don't project out to them. You pull way back. And you just talk to them as if you're sitting, right next to them. Maybe over the coffee, over the table having coffee and having a conversation. That's how I visualize, and that's how I coach the talent that I work with, to visualize and to be able to communicate and talk to that person and connect. Because in voiceovers, it's not about performance. I mean, certainly it is a performance, but what it's about ultimately, it's about connecting with the person who's listening. And if you can't do that, then you'll never be successful as a voice talent. But if you can get past this idea that getting in behind a microphone is about getting in some big dramatic role, and begin to understand that you're connecting with people and doing whatever that calls for, again, by speed pacing, by the range of your vocal inflections, and by the way you project, you can begin to connect with listeners, which means you'll begin to win more auditions, and you'll begin to get more clients, and you'll begin to get more repeat work from clients. Hey, I wish you all the best in your voiceover journey, your voiceover career. I encourage you to leave any comments or questions below the video, and hopefully we'll have the chance to talk soon. Take care.